Hello there. Today we're taking a closer look at Scott McCall's pre-alpha status, about which I admit I hold some controversial opinions. If you've been around the channel for any time at all, you know I like to reply to your comments and answer your questions if I can. I've been writing about Teen Wolf for almost 10 years now, so I know the show canon pretty well, but sometimes questions come up that the show didn't answer in a simple way. And some other questions were answered, but they were answered in a series of contradictions. When that happens, I try to dig through what was said and what Jeff Davis or other writers have told me about the topic, just to try to get to the bottom of it. And thus is the case with Scott's original status, which is all tied up in whether or not Scott has a pack. If you're enjoying our road trips back to Beacon Hills each week, consider subscribing. Also, if you hit the bell, YouTube will let you know when I post new material. To start, we're going back to the very beginning. According to Jeff Davis, human teens have packs already.
I like the idea that these packs, I think it's a good story for teenagers to hear, that you can be accepted into a pack just because of the person you are, and not because of your social status, not because of your blood relation, but just by being a good person.
It's the family you have and the one you make with your close friends, or some combination of the two.
A dead body? No, a body of water. Yes, dumbass, a dead body.
In the beginning, Scott's pack was Styles, his mom, and probably Styles' dad, because the boys were so close. They all looked out for each other. I mean, Melissa called Stilinski the night Scott's dad knocked him down the stairs. They're close, and there is obviously love from each of them towards Scott. That's his pack when the show starts, and his status in his human pack is solidly beta. I mean, Melissa is obviously in charge, of that there is no doubt. Then we get into the bite and actually becoming a werewolf, and with that came this expectation that Scott had assumed some sort of werewolf status. We even have Derek trying to explain it to him.
You and I, we're betas. This thing is more powerful, more animal than either of us.
But we now know that's not true. While Derek might still consider himself part of a pack with his comatose uncle and therefore consider himself a beta, I don't think Scott is part of a pack at all, and therefore is not technically a beta as we now understand it. Also, Derek is always hail pack from here on out. He's definitely an ally to the McCall pack, but even after he gave up alpha status, he's got his own thing going on with Peter and Cora. He helped Scott and is as close to Scott as many of Scott's pack members, but if the definitions mean anything at all, he's never actually in the McCall pack. Back to season 1. Soon after the bite, I no longer count Scott's mom or Stilinski, or Allison for that matter, as part of his pack because there is a damaged trust bond there. Scott is holding on to a secret, and without trust, the bond of the pack is broken. We saw that happen later in season 5 when Theo went around undermining Scott and the pack broke up and Scott got all weak due to the lack of support. So, knowing that that's how it goes down when the trust is gone, I look back at season 1 and see Scott struggling with a whole bunch of lies to the most important people in his life. That says to me that the McCall pack is just Styles and him. That might still be a pack since there's no hard and fast rules on membership numbers, but I don't think it's a pack, and therefore in my mind Scott can't be a beta at this point. This is reinforced by the fact that Scott successfully resists Peter's attempts at controlling him at the school, and then rejects Peter to his face when he and Derek ambush Scott in the shower.
We really just want to help you reach your full potential.
By killing my friends.
Sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones holding you back the most.
If They're holding me back from becoming a psychotic nut job like you. I'm okay with that.
And while we had not yet heard the term at this point in the series, I don't actually believe Scott is an Omega either. As a side note, canonically, the first mention of the Omega werewolf comes in episode 6 of the web series Search for a Cure, which is taking place around the midpoint of the first season.
When I connected the woman to the werewolf myth.
Anyway, I don't think Scott is a lone wolf, but he also doesn't have a pack as it is defined. So he's not technically part of a pack, but still has family and friends, so he's not alone either. Therefore, since he's not alone, he can't be considered an Omega.
We're not just betas anymore, we're Omegas. The bitches, remember?
But wait, the twins were considered Omegas, and they had each other.
Up here.
That's right, but otherwise, they were on their own. They'd killed everyone that they could have possibly turned to for support, except maybe for their abusive former leader Deucalion, but that was apparently not an option for them. Without some kind of support structure, a werewolf is definitely an Omega. Scott, on the other hand, he has friends. Only one ride-or-die pack member friend in Styles, but he has a full support system, including mentors in his mom, Stilinski, and Deaton, and a strong partner in Allison. Again, he's lying to them, so they're not technically in the pack, but they're still with him when he needs support. In my mind, for these few weeks after the bite, I don't think Scott fits any of the definitions for werewolf status provided by the show. That weird limbo eventually changes the night of their fight with Peter. That's the night Allison really joins the pack.
Why did you do that?
Once the truth is out and she decides to stay with him anyway, you've got Scott, Styles, and Allison, and that's what I consider the McCall pack at this point. And as I understand it, even without an alpha, they are, all three, considered betas because they're in a pack.
You want to tell them what we've caught?
An Omega.
The lone wolf. Possibly kicked out of his own pack. Or the survivor of a pack that was hunted down.
Jeff did a whole episode about it, and Scott is actually called an Omega by Derek at this point.
This is why you need me. Why we need each other. The only way to fight them is together.
But I think that's just werewolf bigotry. I don't think Derek initially recognizes humans as pack members. His attitude apparently changes as we get deeper into season 2. It's still just the three of them, but now Derek declares Scott to be an alpha of his own pack.
I think I'm finally getting why you keep refusing me, Scott. You're not an Omega. You're already an alpha of your own pack.
We know physically that's not how it works, but he's definitely leading a little pack.
I'll promise not to say anything about what just happened if you can tell me what the hell just happened.
Then, about 2.5 months after the bite, Lydia is brought into the fold. Allison had to read her in on the supernatural elements to get her help with the bestiary after the whole Jackson is a lizard thing. And by the start of season 3, she's fully in the pack and helping at every turn. Still, as we understand it, all these folks are betas. Now, Scott is the leader, and in all things but eye color, he is the alpha. He's still not technically an alpha, as the show would come to define the status, but he's definitely in charge of these three betas. By the way, this scene in season 2 still confuses me.
2's not enough for Derek. I know he needs at least 3.
Okay, so Scott tells Erica he knows this, but where did he learn it? I swear I've gone over every conversation Scott had about werewolves and packs prior to this moment, but I can't find where it comes from. I'd like to track down Scott's source. Where was I? Oh yeah. Allison, Scott, Styles, and Lydia are the pack at the start of season 3. Then Derek does that whole I'm being mean to you to protect you thing with Isaac, and Scott gets his first werewolf pack member. Then we see Scott go full alpha because his eyes change in that super dramatic scene with Jenna. Okay, thanks for watching. I'm sure some of y'all disagree with my there were several weeks when Scott had no status theory, so tell me about that in the comments. Also, like and subscribe and do all the other YouTube things. I'll see you next time we go back to Beacon Hills.